Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we're going to be talking about WWF WrestleMania Challenge on the NES. This was a promising game that I just don't think delivered on the gameplay that well. It's okay, it looks great compared to the other games that are on the NES, but the gameplay is just kind of bad. At least I thought it was really bad. The biggest problem with it is just the camera angle that you're looking at. This isometric angle makes it really hard to line up any of your attacks. If they had just sort of lowered it in some way or put it back to just a regular perspective, it would have been better. But looking at the ring on an angle like this, it makes it really hard to line up your attacks. And yeah, the enemy AI just isn't very good at times, so you end up running around here like a pair of drunks, trying to get your opponent into the right position to do any of the attacks, only for your opponent to beat the living hell out of you. It's really annoying to play this. That being said, the controls are surprisingly good at times. It's not really an issue of being able to pull off the moves. It's just an issue of being able to line up correctly in order to do it. It's one of those weird things where the visuals are making things worse, but you can actually do many of the moves, and that's pretty good. I don't know, it's hard to really describe just how it feels playing this. The roster is pretty good this time around. It's not as good as King of the Ring's roster, but it's still pretty good. You've got Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Randy Savage, The Big Boss Man, Rick Rude, Jim Duggan, and you've got a customizable character, which is conveniently named Yourself. So you can play as yourself and gain some experience and sort of level up, or at least increase your stats during this, which is nice. I think the customizable character in King of the Ring is done better, but it's still pretty cool to see it here in this game. This was programmed by Rare Software. The other two games were done by, I believe, Beam. This game looks better than those. It just has a lot more going on, but there's still some issues with it, specifically with the camera angle, and a lot of my issues just fall back on really the visuals and not so much the graphics, but just the way the camera is set up. Let's talk more about that in just a second. First, let's give a quick rundown of the game modes. There's not much to this game. You've got a one-player mode, which is basically an 8-man gauntlet match. You've got some tag team matches, which are 2-player only. And then you have a 6-man elimination match, which is basically a Survivor Series match. Which makes me wonder why they didn't call this game Survivor Series instead of WrestleMania, but whatever. Each character kind of feels a little bit unique because they've got their own moveset. The buttons are all pretty much the same for every character, but the moves they perform are going to be a little different. It's fine, to be perfectly honest. There is no finishing moves in this, which is kind of disappointing, but overall having the ability to do different moves with your characters is pretty awesome. There's not many of them, but it is nice to have just some variety in the gameplay. That being said, I would have liked to have some finishing moves, especially since you saw many of the unlicensed games, or the games that don't have like a WWF or WCW license. They were able to pull off finishing moves in their games, but here, I don't know, they just didn't really do it. It would have been nice if they had copied some of the stuff that had been done in WCW Wrestling or Pro Wrestling or Tecmo World Wrestling. But that was just not really in the cards, I guess. Anyway, let's get into the graphics. The graphics are somehow the best and the worst part of this game. It's amazing how that works sometimes. It looks good for the time, but really this camera angle makes it really hard to play. Like I mentioned, lining up your attacks is just a major pain in the ass. The characters all look good. These are more than just the palette swaps that you saw in Steel Cage Challenge, or even in WCW wrestling for the most part. Each has like a unique look, even if it is a little cartoonish. I'm okay with that because each character looks different. You've got the Big Boss Man looking physically larger than several of the other characters. You've got Rick Rude and Brutus the Barber Beefcake looking smaller than somebody like Andre the Giant. It just works out a lot better. I don't really mind this at all. The realistic character models aren't necessary when you're talking about something like this, especially with retro games. The graphics for WrestleMania Challenge look much better than, Steel Cage Challenge or WWF WrestleMania, or really either Muscle or Tag Team Wrestling. These are really good graphics for the actual gameplay. The characters' health bars being on the side of the ring is odd. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I kind of prefer them being up at the top of the screen, but I don't know. I guess they were going for a different look here. They wanted to kind of not have the heads-up display be as much of the actual graphics as they are in other games. I don't know. It's weird. I don't necessarily like it all that much, but it is pretty good for what it is. Not having the character names can be a little annoying, but they look different enough from each other that you can identify them, so it's pretty good. Overall, the graphics are good, but the camera angle really ruins the game. It's still a playable game, and it can be fun once you kind of adjust to just the bad camera angle with it. But man, that camera angle ruins so much in this that it's just really annoying. So let's go into the likes and dislikes. We'll get the dislikes out of the way really quick. I don't like the camera angle. I think it's crap and it messes up the game quite a bit. Aside from that, the graphics look pretty good. I just have to draw a separation between the way the game actually looks and then the perspective that you're being forced to play. The controls are fairly good, but yeah, again, it comes back down to that camera angle. It's easy to pull off moves at times once you get into a position to actually do it. The running attacks are just an absolute nightmare to land, but once you grapple, then you can pull things off quite easily. Getting to land any of the turnbuckles that's just a nightmare in its own right. I attempted it a few times, but had absolutely no success. Yeah, I like everything about this game, with the exception of the camera angle. That's where everything comes back to. It also would be nice if there were finishing moves to this, and having just more of a roster as well would be also a lot better. And if you had a single-player tag team match, that would be great. But, man, that two-player only tag team mode was just really annoying. There is a chance that I just screwed it up, and you can do it in the single-player mode, but that wasn't the experience that I had when I was playing this. So, yeah, let's roll into my final thoughts, and we'll wrap this up. This is a decent wrestling game. It has good graphics, the gameplay is pretty good, and having a generic wrestler to play as is pretty cool, or at least it was really cool at the time. But yeah, it just got torpedoed by having a terrible camera angle. This game just shouldn't have been on an isometric angle. It doesn't work that well, and it takes a long time to get used to. It's really the only major issue because it affects so much of the game. I really wanted to like this more than what I did, and it has some things going for it, but that one bad decision just messed everything up. It also would have been nice if there had been some more game modes as well. I know that there's no story mode and there's no story for a lot of these games, but having some reason why you're doing this would have been nice, especially for the Survivor Series matches. I think this game probably should have just been WWF Survivor Series, since that was already a thing at the time, because I had to go look it up to figure out when the Survivor Series started, and that made me think, why didn't they just call this Survivor Series Challenge instead of WrestleMania Challenge? But whatever, I'm just trying to find things to not like about this at some point. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.